Shy Bro, Father James with Father Hank.
Hey.
And Kevin Gregus.
Heyo.
So we are going to discuss the parable of the prodigal son through the lens of the classic book, The Return of the Prodigal Son, by Henry J.M. Nouwen. The Return of the Prodigal Son, A Story of Homecoming.
Hank, what's the JM stand for?
J.M. don't know. John Marie Vianney? I'm not sure. So Kevin and Father Manuel and I had been discussing this book as part of our little rectory book club. And it's an incredible book. Highly recommend reading. It's not that long, but it is very rich. He's got basically three parts to the book. On the prodigal son, the first part, the elder son, the second part, and the father, the third part. Now, just the brief context is Henry Nouwen. Henry Nouwen was a Dutch priest. He's not deceased, but
He's still alive?
No, he's deceased.
Oh, I thought you said he wasn't deceased. Sorry.
Yeah. I think he died in like the mid-90s, 96 or 97. He was very much inspired by the Rembrandt painting of the Return of the Prodigal Son. So he sat in front of the painting, which is currently in St. Petersburg, or is it Moscow? St. Petersburg or Moscow, Greg?
St. Petersburg, yeah.
St. Petersburg. And reflects on it, has some wonderful insights about the three figures and also himself from the painting. So, friends, if you're listening to this podcast, you might want to Google if you can't picture it, the painting of the prodigal son by Rembrandt. The father is grasping the son. He's got a red cloak, and then the elder son kind of stands off to the right, also in a red cloak. So before we go into each of the characters, Kevin, do you have any opening comments about the book, about the parable, about your life?
Oh, wow. Well, it's been a really good. We've gotten through two parts so far. It's been a fantastic read, and it's a very fruitful discussion, I think. I mean, going into it, the prodigal son is probably my favorite story from the Bible. If the kids ask me what's your favorite Bible story, I tell them I think it's the prodigal son. So I was excited to go into it to really. It's a parable that I've prayed with before. It's a very rich parable, right? I mean, who hasn't spent a lot of time praying with it? The nice thing about it, there's these three distinct characters that you can really, relate to, compare yourself to, talk to, stand in for them. And so that's really what Nouwen does in the book is he says, well, let's look at the younger son, let's look at the older son, let's look at the father and how Nouwen feels like he reflects each of those characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. What about you, Father Hank? I know you haven't read the book, but any thoughts on the prodigal son parable?
Yeah, over time listening to other homilies and preachings and some scripture studies on it, it is interesting to focus on the different characters versus just the prodigal son and how much that really adds so much more to another dimension of ourselves, our relationship with other people, forgiveness, and God's mercy too.
So often we read the parable and we either think of just, okay, the father is incredibly generous and that's what God is to us. Well, first, let's start with the prodigal son. Okay, so Nouwen talks about how he, in many ways, was and still has a part of him that is the prodigal son. The prodigal son, what I took away, Kevin, from this was that, I think we talked about this in our discussion, the prodigal son, he leaves home. He goes off to a distant country. He asks for his father's inheritance, which is basically saying, Father, you're dead to me. And the son goes off because at home, he feels unfulfilled. He feels dissatisfied. Perhaps also he doesn't feel the father's love. And so he's got to take what is his, and he's got to go off to a distant country, and he's got to do his own thing. Because whatever his current state is at home, he doesn't feel beloved. Even though he is beloved, we know the father loves him. but the son nonetheless feels like he's got to go in search of that in the distant land.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Right, heavy. Yeah, heavy. So, anyways, Nowin's got, he's got a great line. He says, and obviously when we go off to the distant land, that's not good for us. What does the prodigal son do in the distant land, right? He swallows up his inheritance with loose living and prostitutes and whatnot. Then he starts eating what pigs eat. He says, Nowin, it is not very hard for me to know when I'm gone off into the distant country. Anger, resentment, jealousy, desire for revenge, lust, greed, antagonisms, and rivalries are the obvious signs that I've left home. Do you remember that part, Kevin? It's like,
Yep.
yeah, when we're indulging this, okay, we're not satisfied, we're not feeling loved, and so in turn we're feeling angry and revengeful and antagonistic. We know, all right, we're off in the distant country. We're looking for something that's not really the Father's love.
And then in that you realize, okay, I actually had it good. There was something that I had that I'm now missing with my father, but I've done something to lose my father's love. Like, I'm going to go back to him and say, I'm not worthy of being your son. Treat me like a hired servant. Like, he kind of plans this out. He sets the bar low. He says, I'll go back, so it'll be good, but I won't be the son anymore. But I'll still be fine. He kind of prepares himself to be treated less than the son, because that's what he expects. He's done all these bad things. He feels he's lost the father's love.
Right. The only way we can, so Rembrandt and now, we've got to come to our senses. We've got to return to the Father's love, and really God the Father's love. Our biological father's parents, human love will always fall short of what we fully need, but God the Father is ready to welcome us home. So come to our senses. All right, let's quickly move on to the elder son, because this to me was the more powerful one. At least for me, I very much resonated it. So the elder son is equally dissatisfied, even though he's in the father's house working all those years, never asking for anything, but he's full of resentment, anger, bitterness. When the son comes, when his younger brother comes home, he stays out in the field. So the elder son in the painting is the figure on the right, standing, tall. He's got the same red cloak as his father, but it's the father's red cloak is in an arch, kind of draped over the son, whereas the elder son's just straight down. The elder son is wrapped up in his own slavery and anger, unable to forgive. He wants the father to love him as well, and he doesn't feel like he's getting it, so he keeps working. And when the father shows outward love to the younger son, what does the elder son do? He gets really angry and stays out in the field. So anyways, elder son and Father Hank and Kevin.
Yeah, when I think of the elder son, I think of someone who, when I see it myself, as someone who, they see that the younger son did this, and they're in a way they're jealous or envious. They're like, I look at this. I could have gone and wasted my father's money and lived exactly like all the things I want to try out. I could have done that. I could have come back and been welcomed back with open arms. Like, what the heck? There's a jealousy aspect, and it's the love that he has for his father. It's not really love. It's dutiful. He feels he has to earn it. He has to constantly be working for his father love, and it's not free at all. He feels like a slave to his father, and so in the same way that the younger son doesn't feel his father's love, it's the older son doesn't feel it either. It's just in a different way, and maybe even in a worse way. It's a resentful love.
Yes, right.
It's interesting to note on the literary style of the parable is that the two moments for the possibility of healing, reconciling for both the younger son and also the elder son too, to really kind of, be embraced again by his father, or to reveal to the father his dissatisfaction, come towards the end in like actual dialogue. Before it's all kind of just narrated, I believe, but I think even in that is such an essential point of the dissatisfaction at home, or the lack of sense of fulfillment, or the sense of, I'm just being dutiful to you. I don't really feel like I have the relationship to you. All that kind of really comes to the surface and can be finally healed by their willingness to be vulnerable, their willingness to voice to the Father what they're feeling. And I think that's such a huge step in all relationships, even our relationship with God, is, have I just been staying off to the side, resentful? Have I left? And that just cuts off all communication. Whereas if I can muster up the courage, the humility to express what I'm feeling to the other person, or if I can finally go back to Mass and share with the Father all that I've been dissatisfied with, either in my own faith life or with the church or with him or what have you, that's where the moment of healing really enters in.
Very good. So it all leads us to become the Father. That's now in this third part. We're heirs to the Father. Heirs are called to be successors. So we're the prodigal son, we're the elder son, but we're eventually also called to be the Father, loving generously, a non-demanding love, he calls it, that we're called to have to others. So we're all called to be fathers and mothers in our own way. So hopefully meditation on this parable, maybe reading the book, praying with it during Holy Week, the remaining days of Lent can make us into Christ-like figures. God bless.
Peace.
Bye.